Good morning, it's Frugal here. As always, I have my coffee because otherwise somebody might just get killed. So let's talk today about retirement, right? And a bit about retirement planning, about retirement as such, and retirement. Yes, we're going to talk about retirement today. So, a lot of people think that it's this magical moment where you're going to turn 65 and you're going to retire, you're going to sit at home, you're going to knit, you're going to probably fix a couple of pipes, you're going to retile your place, you're going to live happily ever after, and then you die. So, I want to burst some bubbles today. Firstly, I'd like to let you know that retirement, with regards to that many people cannot retire financially free. Remember, retirement is not an age, it's the time that you have enough investments that it can cover your expenses. So you don't have to retire like at 65, right? If you plan correctly and you plan well, you can retire earlier. This is called financial independence, retiring early. So there's quite a couple of investments I'm going to talk about in a bit. There's a couple of wrappers and investment things that you can do, such as retirement annuities and tax-free savings accounts that you can use and utilize. There's also other investment types. I've got a really cool video on that as well on my channel with regards to other investments. But I want to take a step back first. I want to talk about what you're going to do when you retire. So when you retire, right, you're probably, like I said, not going to sit and knit the whole time. You probably want to start getting some habits and hobbies in place at this point in time. The thing is, people go and they're like, sit there and they're like, what am I going to do with my life? And if you're anything like my grandmom, she used to go and do cuttings from newspapers about all the negative things that would be going on, and say like when they're on the call, they're like, she's got the little paper. So she takes them and she's like, okay, so I read this in the news, when she calls someone, and then she puts it to the side. And then it's like, so I read this on the news, and she puts it to the side. And that's the whole conversation that she had because she had nothing to do. She had nothing planned, no hobbies. So it's so important that you actually have hobbies, right? That you start building hobbies and things that you love right now. I know a lot of people will say, well, I'm never going to retire. I'm going to work until the day that I die. Remember, your body changes, your mind changes. You become a little bit slower with regards to things. You don't talk as fast as you used to. You're probably not going to want to work as hard as you did. Like at the moment when you're young, you think, yeah, that's 100% fine. I'll be fine. It's good. Like I'd be able to do it. I am but like the thing is, it doesn't quite work like that, right? You don't know what the future holds. So for that reason, get hobbies in place. Get things in place that you can, like that you would be able to do something. If it's gardening, do it. If it's playing computer games, well, a couple's quite nice as well. Yes, you might want to travel a bit as well, but remember, it might happen that you would not be able to travel, such as during pandemics, because of cash flow issues, or other problems as well. So make sure that you have things you can do, whether it's flying drones, whether it's going fishing, whether it's, like almost said, not only read newspapers, but read books maybe, blog, write a couple of things maybe like a couple of low-key things that keeps your brain going, like intellectual things. Just spread it really, really well. So, now that we've talked about what you're going to do when you retire, okay, let's talk about your number. Now, we want to get into the money things because when people talk about retirement planning, they do talk about money as well. So with many people and many financial advisors, they will use the 4% drawdown rule. Now, a simplified version of this would be to say your monthly expenses. So if your monthly expenses is 30,000 Rand, then what you do is you times that by 300, which would give you 9 million Rand. That is how much you would need to retire. So just that calculation again, it's your expenses times 300 gives you the amount that you need to retire. Now you might say, oh my goodness, that means I'm going to have to save about 36,000 Rand per month. That's insane. Well, the cool thing is that if you invest in some cool, good investments, right, you take your investments are going to compound, right? It's not just going to go, oh, it's my own money. It is going to be inflation plus a little bit more. If it's cash or equivalents, which is later in life, it might be, just inflationary. But probably if you do go a little bit high risk when you're young, you can make up for that in the long run. Concerning my investment video, I've explained quite a bit about if you're young, but higher risk means but higher returns early on in life, and it compounds later, which is really, really important. But knowing your number is very important. And remember, your number changes yearly because your personal inflation changes yearly. So personal inflation then would be my personal, like how much my budget increases every year. So for example, in the CPI index, which is the basket, that is the basket that they use to say, okay, this is what inflation is going. That would be things like petrol, electricity, pop, things like that. That's the stuff that they've got in the basket. But they don't have medical aid in the basket. So medical aid goes up with 20% a year. So you need to go and check how much is my stuff going up or down with. And that will give you like a yearly overview of, are you still on track to retire? So now that we've talked about your number, let's now move on to investing. Yes, I want to talk about retirement and investing shortly. I don't want to go into too much depth, but what I want to say is that there's certain vehicles that helps you in retirement in the long run. So, for example, retirement annuities, sometimes the fees are really high on them because of the overhead, but what it basically is like, it's a wrapper, right? It's like this package that you have, and anything that goes in has to adhere to the rules, which is Regulation 28. Now, if you do put money in, you're going to get your tax back on that. Just take note, you're going to get it back today, but it's what they called deferred tax, which means you're going to pay that tax on that once you retire, okay? So it's not something that's going to be like, oh, I'm never going to pay tax on this. Oftentimes, retirement annuities, due to Regulation 28, do not perform very well. I know of quite a couple of people that have some really cool retirement annuities with very low fees, but they have performed -2% for 5 or 6 years running. So keep your finger on the pulse when it comes to fees, as well as with regards to the performance of your retirement annuities. Now, in short, Regulation 28 dictates that you need to have you can only have maximum of 75% of your entire portfolio of that retirement annuity in stocks, and it needs also to be about 75% in South Africa, which means that you have to invest locally. You can't invest overseas. And generally, you can't also invest in low-cost ETFs. It tends to be either active or passive managed funds. So there is quite a bit of risk involved, and I highly recommend that you keep your finger on the pulse there. Make sure that you ask the people what fees you're paying. Make sure that you understand what the performance is, and not just check how much money is in there, but also check if it's actually performing. Now you also get the second thing, a tax-free savings account, which I have gone on about since forever. What's cool about it is that you're going to put money into it, and any money you take out of there is going to be tax-free. Now with a retirement annuity, you can only take it out after 55. Little star there, terms and conditions do apply. But generally they want to stop you from taking your money out because people spend their money on things they shouldn't be. So what I suggest on that would be that you go and, well, if you can't leave your money alone and you just want to withdraw it, and you just want to spend it, rather than put it in a retirement annuity, don't go the route of I'm going to spend it all, I'm going to save other money and go and I just you keep on spending. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Rather than put it in a retirement annuity or someplace that you cannot touch it for the long run. With a tax-free savings account, you can access it whenever you want to, but you don't want to. So any profit that you make is going to be tax-free. So even in retirement, whenever in your life you withdraw your profits or your money, it is going to be tax-free. But remember, you've got limits on it. 36,000 Rand a year you can put in, 500,000 Rand over your lifetime you can put in. So if you do take the money out, you can't put that money back in. It goes off from your lifetime limit, as well as then obviously from your annual limit. So just want to say, with regards to tax-free savings account, obviously T's and C's apply as well with regards to tax. It's any tax in South Africa, dividends tax, capital gains tax, those taxes aren't payable. If you die and it's in your estate, then probably going to be taxable on there, but then you're not here anymore, so you are personally not going to be paying tax on that. If you do have overseas exposure, such as with ETFs, then there's a little bit tax payable. But having said that, for retirement, it's a very, very cool vehicle. You can also look at other things like I've mentioned previously, property and stocks and bonds and all of these other things. But what's important is that you save for the long run, that you know that you are going to be okay in retirement financially, mentally, that you're not going to be bored. And I highly recommend, and I want to just get into the closing part now, that you check yourself regularly, like every year, check, are you still on track financially? Okay, so in closing, a couple of things that I would like to touch on. Number one, financially, make sure you're okay yearly. Get hobbies in place so that you know that you're not going to be bored pulling out your hair. Make sure that you have some insurance in place if you do need to, life insurance in case things happen. Next one, make very sure that you eat healthy, that you exercise, that you're doing well on yourself and with yourself. Now that you know a little bit more about retirement, have a wonderful day and happy investing.